Welcome to Let's Get Writing. I'm Catherine Taylor. Let's Get Writing is the show where we share the stories behind the stories of all the books you love to read. And my guest today has recently published his first book, and we're going to learn more about that journey from a dream to a bookshelf. And he's an emerging author, originally from Branch, Newfoundland and Labrador, and currently living in Mount Pearl. And he was born into a community of storytellers. And he's been putting pen to paper his whole life. And he really enjoys writing speculative fiction. And if you wonder what speculative fiction is, well, stay tuned because we're going to learn all about it as I welcome Jay McGrath to Let's Get Writing. Come on up, as they say, Jay. Come on down. Hi, good morning.
You're the next contestant on The Price is Right.
There you go. It works. It's fun doing this and popping my guest in. And I was saying to you earlier that having to interview and also be the technician is quite the job.
There's a lot of hats, right? But listen, Catherine, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. And, said to you earlier, I mean it. I'll say it to you again. You can ask me anything.
Oh, okay. All right. You really opened the door. But we're going to focus on your book, Jay. And you're a new author. This is your first book. And how did it feel for you to see We'd Rather Fight Than Eat on bookshelves?
It's so cool. Like I don't know if I can really, a writer can't really articulate, right, how cool it felt. But there's been so many cool moments along the way, like not just seeing it, on chapter shelves or shelves in general, not just seeing it up on Amazon available for sale, but other cool moments as well, like bringing it to. The book is dedicated to a few young people in my life. Sorry, easy for me to say, but a few children in my life that's important to me. But so one of the really cool moments for me early on was I dropped off some copies to each of those kids, and seeing one of my nephews ask me about it and understand that this is really cool. Like this book is going to be in chapters and these sorts of things. And then he asked, is there any bad words in it? And then so I gave him the spiel about there's actually like 100 and some odd because I counted them. And, you got to make each bad word count, and all these sorts of things. And he was getting it. So I was talking to his mom and dad and looked over and he was doing like one of these, right? He was
like, scanning through.
Bad words. So like that was such that moment to me, knowing that he understood the importance and coolness of having a book out was just as special for me than walking into chapters and seeing it on the shelf, right?
It's pretty good thrill to walk in. I know exactly what you're talking about and go find your book.
Totally.
Yeah, that feeling. It is amazing. Jay, now I've explained to everyone that your book is speculative fiction and maybe not everyone is up to speed, but I did have one other author on earlier this year. It was J.H.R. Lawless, and he was published with Engine Books, and he had a number of speculative fiction books. So I'm tuned in a bit on this, but it wasn't the first time that I heard about it. So why don't we talk a little bit about speculative fiction?
Listen, Catherine, secret, I just like the phrase. It sounds good. It's fun to say. No, I don't know if I necessarily set out to write speculative fiction so much as that I had an idea and then just sort of ran with it and realized pretty early on that the story I was telling would fall into, speculative fiction. So, to maybe help folks who are listening or watching this interaction between us, probably one of the most well-known examples of speculative fiction is Margaret Atwood refers to Handmaid's Tale as speculative fiction, right? All of these pieces that she's taken in her story have happened elsewhere in the world, and she's sort of put them together in the Handmaid's Tale story and, and told her story. Very much.
Good example. Really good example. Yeah.
So similarly, I guess, and let's just take a second and pause to say I'm not trying to compare myself to Margaret Atwood here. at all. But what I'm saying is, I think from a story idea perspective, I took things that I thought were very plausible in, when the book was written a couple of years ago, things that were happening at the time, and sort of tried to blend some of these things in here in what I was trying to say about society and what had happened to
Hmm.
society. And, without giving too much away in terms of the bad thing that has happened in my story, We'd Rather Fight Than Eat.
Well, can I give away? I think it's from the back. It was action-packed adventure, which I agree. There's lots going on in there, and it would be among the ashes of the apocalypse. The people of Beckford must band together if they hope to stay alive. And I think to some degree we're all feeling a little bit of this today in the world. What the heck is going on? Every time we turn on the news, if you watch it, or you're on the internet, it's like, what now?
You can't escape it, right? Like there's
Mhm,
always something that you're seeing that,
mhm,
the more attention you pay to it, the more you'd kind of go, that's a bit more than a little concerning. But
mhm,
in this case, what I will say to folks, I don't want to give too much away about what specifically has happened. But I will say, if you don't want to read about a pandemic, it's not a pandemic in here. It's
mhm,
nothing supernatural. There's no zombies in here. We had a reviewer, well, Joan Sullivan, reviewed the book. And what I'll just, I guess, use a phrase that she used was something original.
mhm.
I came up with something original that would cause a collapse within society, but something that speculating, I thought as a writer and trying to tell this story that this is something very much plausible that could happen in our society. And if that is plausible and it did happen, what would we do? Where would we
What
go?
would we do? Indeed. Jay, I'm just gonna pull you down for a second because I want to put the book cover between us,
Sure.
and this is the only way it works. Just hang on for a sec, and then if I bring you back up, this should be in between us.
There it is.
There we go.
And
How
like
many
so
people have this?
pleased with the like I even just seeing it now again, right?
Yeah.
Like here's a little bit, I guess, behind the screen or behind the curtain, I suppose.
Mhm,
And for me, a lesson I learned very on in the publishing process with Flanker, you got to trust your publisher. And one of the
mhm,
things for me, my idea for the cover was not originally this idea. And they said, leave it with us and we'll brainstorm. We'll work with a graphic artist to do it, and came back with this. And I love it. I'm so glad. It was a lesson early on, sort of
mhm.
in the publishing process, to sometimes you might have a vision as the creator of the story, but you got to lean on the people that are experts in the field, and that's what I did with Flanker. And Graham Blair did an amazing job on this cover, and I'm so pleased with it. So
I agree with you, and it really does I mean, it looks like Newfoundland.
totally.
Any of us who live here and know the geography can be very harsh, and well, and I don't want everyone to think Newfoundland looks like this. It doesn't, but there are areas of Newfoundland that we have a lot of rock and stunted trees, and then the lighting on this, anyway, very good. How about the title? We'd rather fight than eat. What happened? Your title, their title?
Yeah, no, it was a line I had in the story, and I think there's a part of me that I don't try to put a title on a story too early on. You sort of let the story unfold and you try to pick a title. Again, wasn't the original title I had in mind, but brainstorming with Flanker, Flanker said, why don't you come up with a few different possibilities? And then I found this line deep into the story, and it is important for me because it is a line I grew up with. It was a line that my grandfather from Branch would also say. He would often say if there was something a bit scandalous or mischievous going on in the community,
Mhm,
my pop would say something like, this crowd here, we'd rather fight than eat. So it was an expression that I grew up with. But what has been interesting, and another one of these cool things for me going along in this process for the first time, Catherine, the number of people at what I say at the table, right? But I'm talking about
mhm,
at book signings or at fairs or whatever event. But at the table, more and more people were saying to me, "Oh, my pop used to say that," or "My dad says that about me and my sister." I was hearing this more and more and more and more, to the point where, as you know, as we've chatted about it, I reached out to Newfoundland Chocolate, and told them what I was hearing at the table, and they were open to adding to their Newfoundland Labrador expressions sayings bars, and
It's bringing cool. We'd
right,
rather.
like so we'd rather fight than eat Newfoundland chocolate bar. So, I didn't anticipate that going in. That so many people would relate to the title that I had sort of taken from my childhood, uh,
Mhm.
with my grandfather saying it. But that's been a cool part of this as well. And I think too, outside of it being an expression that again, I grew up with it, but other people have in their lives. I do kind of think it's reflective of the people and the characters that are in this story because some of them would rather fight than eat. And
Yeah.
there's an argument to be made, however cleverly, that, does that speak to us at some capacity as a society and as people? Uh, do sometimes we have a preference to battle as opposed to sharing a bit of food together?
Yeah, yeah, good point. And I have to go back to the chocolate bar, but what a brilliant marketing. I don't know if I could say it was your strategy when you went in, but you came out with it. So
Well, look,
well on
I
you, sir.
I appreciate that, and to me, Catherine, like that's part of it. There's a creative side to this, which I really enjoy. I love to write, but you got to promote your product as well, and I've been trying to come up with creative and fun ways to do that. We did. Outside before there was a bar, there was a grilled cheese, right? So oh my cheeses, one of the I think arguably the sort of the food truck business that elevated food truck businesses here in this province. They are a staple at the St. John's Farmers Market. So we were having a book market in September, about a month after my book came out. St. John's Farmers Market hosts their book market in September. So I reached out to all my cheeses about doing a grilled cheese, and they were absolutely on board. They did a "We'd Rather Eat Than Fight" grilled cheese, and promoted the book at their station at the St. John's Farmers Market during the book event. And look, from a again behind the curtain kind of scenes here,
Yeah.
that week was the first time I could go in and look at my Facebook writer page, and my views and my engagements on social media grew significantly. Like, it was such a big number, in thousands of people that had checked out my product because of the promotion through all my cheeses. So then, if you got a grilled cheese, I mean, if you got an all my cheeses sandwich, what else can we do? So, when I was hearing those things at the table, reached out to Newfoundland Chocolate, and they were super on board. They've been easy to
Mhm.
deal with. And also, put the bar obviously in their location for sale, but put a bunch of bookmarks right alongside with it to make sure
Mhm.
people know that it is a book through Flanker Press. So
Brilliant, really. And many times, I don't know that if I've had a guest on who's had some of these very unique marketing ventures going and partnerships, really, and good partnerships because that's very good chocolate.
oh,
And
I mean,
obviously, the sandwich, which I've not had, I'm missing that in my life. I'm going to have to straighten that out.
oh, if you're in here for St. John's Farmers Market, you got to get a grilled cheese, and I would suggest to you go with the Kevin McAllister, because that's the Just Cheese special, and that's, to me, that's the way to go. But
I love the names. I was, you got to count on us for being funny people. We're good. We're good with humor.
totally.
We are. And this is your Facebook page. Anyone out there who wants to catch up with Jay on Facebook, Jay McGrath, comma, writer. Um, and he's not on a lot of social media because that was one of my questions. Jay, where are you clicking these days? He's like, Facebook.
Yeah, listen,
Listen,
it's a lot of work, and some of it makes me uncomfortable. Like, I'm scared of even trying TikTok. I don't really understand it. I am on Instagram, and I am going to try to turn my the Jay McGrath profile into more about my writing endeavors on Instagram. But it was something early on that my publisher Flanker did say, like, you gotta you got to promote your stuff through social media. So we'd encourage you to get back on, the platforms that
Mhm.
you're comfortable with, and promote your product. So that's how I ended up creating the Jay McGrath Writers page. But I use it to promote things at where I'm going to be or where I just have been, just to let people know that what we're trying to do and some of the
Well,
cool and creative ways we're trying to market the book, right?
well, and there's no doubt when you mention TikTok could certainly be a character in speculative fiction if we were still connected at that time.
Totally.
Um, let's get back a little bit to the book. I wanted to, I mean, reading the book, you have a lot of characters, and having written a book, I'm like, how did you keep that all straight?
I'm not
Um,
sure. That's the answer. Look. I didn't mean to jump in and cut you
oh,
off.
no, you jump in.
I kept expecting someone to say two things to me. One, you have too many characters. Two, this is your first book, and dude, like this is a bit of a cliffhanger. So I kept expecting, those to be, for the lack of a better phrase, I suppose, barriers, and someone to say, you need to go back and address this, or you need to go
Mhm.
back and edit this. And I've said that to Flanker more than once, that I kept expecting this. But nobody has said it to me. There are a bunch of characters, but here's the thing. I was trying to create this community, right? Beckford is
Mhm.
the community in the story, and Beckford, just as a quick side note, used to be a community outside of my home community of Branch. So right outside of Branch, right before you get to Branch, coming out Salmon Line, there used to be a small community called Beckford, and some of the signage is still up. You can go out, you can see Beckford River signage still out there outside the community. So I wanted that sort of connection to my past to be part of the story. But I was trying to create this community. So if you're creating a community, you got to have a bunch of interesting people in it. So you know, was more than once that I did think is
Mhm.
folks here. And look, it's not about a number. Like that's not what
Mhm.
we're saying here. But what we're saying really is, is each character important enough to be there, and does each character have enough space within the story to be relevant? And so I was very cognizant of that aspect of it. If there's too many characters, well, I got to justify having each one of them there.
Right.
Uh, so I did put a lot of thought into it, and perhaps overthinking it to a certain extent. But who knows? Maybe that's why nobody along the way yet has said, "Jay, boy, you got to cut a few of these people. You got to cut a few of these characters out,
That's
right?"
that's your babies.
Well, but there's an expression too, right? In writing, right? You got to
Cut your darlings, isn't it? Or kill
yeah,
your
kill the
darling.
darlings,
Kill
right?
your darlings. Yeah.
Now, that said, while there are a lot of characters, spoiler alert, a bunch of them do die in this. In this
Well,
series.
it is kind of as they say, an apocalypse and a bit dystopian. So it's got
Yeah.
that feel. They can't all go through this change. Um, but Jay, that was quite. You do handle the characters really well, and I noticed also you have a journal, Brooks' journal, interspersed, and I just wanted to mention that the whole idea of throwing in the journal, it's interesting, and we don't want to give away the story, so I'm going to shut up, let you handle this. I'm posing the question, and I'm going to allow
Well,
you to answer it.
I think with Brooke, right? So Brooke is in the community of Beckford, but Brooke is very much an outsider. And so throughout the book, all of the other characters, I guess, from Beckford, the main lens of the story is Jack. But there's a bunch of sections in the book called, Elsewhere in Beckford. And in those sections, you get perspective from, Father Peter, from Megan, from a whole host of different characters. But they're all insiders to the community. Brooke is an outsider. Brooke is not from there. She
Mhm.
doesn't really have any love or appetite for the place. She's Jack's wife. So I wanted to sort of create that distance, of her being an outsider as a character, so that Brooke just didn't fall into the Elsewhere
Right.
and Beckford sections, because she's not really part of it. She's there, but she's not really part of
Right.
Beckford. So I wanted to sort of consciously or subconsciously, I suppose, for a reader, try to help create some of that space between Brooke and them.
Nice.
But there's also, I will say as well, without getting too much into spoilers, um, there is a bit of a little twist at the end with Brooke's journal entries throughout the story. But the last one in particular, when you hit that one, you do get some information from Brooke's journal that might or hopefully gives you a bit of a surprise.
Oh, there we go. So, and interesting, if the audience is not picking it up, writers do an awful lot of deep thinking about characters and what they're creating for you. And your explanation there was such a good example of that. And people pick up a book and read it, but there are hours and tears and torn
Listen,
pages.
I can tell you, there's a bunch of information that will never make it any sort of publication, right? But like Megan got a potato garden out back, like she's grown a lot of her vegetables. So there's little details about these characters that only I will ever know, because ultimately, right, you only have so many words to work with in your novel, and you got to be cognizant of, again, what's relevant, what's necessary, and what's interesting for the reader.
Exactly. And Jay, the women the women in the book, I mean, I have to that caught my attention because they're strong women in this meltdown. It's the women who are the leaders. And so any particular reason for that, Jay?
Something I was also very nervous about, right? Because the expression, right? You write what you know, and it's easy enough for me to write, I guess, from a male perspective. And I mean, the main lens through the story is Jack, but I would be the first to argue that Jack is not necessarily the most compelling character in the story. Um, there's probably more compelling female characters in it. So it was very important to me to have strong female characters in the story. Um, Arguably, right? So that's
Mhm.
Megan on the Beckford side, and on the Saint John's side, that's Danielle, just from a leadership perspective within the
Mhm.
respective places. But there's a lot. Brooke. We mentioned Brooke.
Yeah.
Sarah's another strong character, strong female character in this story. Um, I
Well, it
think
was nice to see, I'll tell you. And Danielle's not soft and fuzzy, folks.
no,
She-
no, no,
We're
and it don't take you long to figure
strong
that
female leads here.
out.
um,
But
oh my
one piece I will say about that, Catherine, I just want to add this in, right? So, like,
God.
I guess I've been fortunate, I think, in my life to have been surrounded by very strong females. And I grew up, let's circle back to Branch, right? So I grew up in a community uh,
Mhm.
that, certainly for the last, 10, 12 years in Branch, all of the council members were female. And when that happened first, I don't know if this is still true, but when that happened first, we were the only municipality in Canada that had elected an all-female council. So, as a bit of an homage to my home community of Branch, the town of Beckford, they have an all-female town council. So, it was some things in my own personal life too that sort of made this strong female aspect of it something that
Mhm.
I was very interested in making sure that was represented in the story.
Very cool. And I like that. It's something I didn't know. Something I didn't know about Branch. Look, we just have a couple of minutes left,
Sure.
and I could talk to you for a long time. It's been delightful. I popped up about the Ink Pod podcast. I'm going to hold up here Word, Writers NL. They're newly branded as Writers NL. Beautiful logo, beautiful. I love the new branding. But you are the chair of the InkPod podcast committee, and I was one of your guests, and it was just you do such a good job. But this is where people can connect with the writing community. So I'll give you a minute to tell us about it.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. And yes, in our previous episodes, a couple of years back, Catherine and I did do an episode, so it was interesting to have the roles reversed a bit here, Catherine, in this conversation.
You were nice to me.
Well, we appreciate it. It's a good episode, and we talk a lot about the business side of writing in that episode. It was an interesting episode. Um, for me, outside of writing, I am a podcast listener, right? I love podcasts. Any given time in the house or in the car, I got different podcasts on. Some of them are silly and ridiculous and fun, and some of them are very serious where you learn things. So, Writers NL, I did see that they had a call out for volunteers a couple of years ago, and I just put my name forward. And bit of my background in my professional life, like I do interview people, different capacity, but I have some interview experience and ended up doing a few episodes, yourself included. But more recently, we did sort of take a switch rather from focusing on sort of episodic Writers NL Inkpad episodes. We said, let's do a series. And so last year we did a series looking back, 6 episodes, looking back at some of the more influential writers that have had an impact on Writers NL over the years, over their, I forget now, 25, 30 years existence in the province. So that was our most recent episode, our most recent series. Our next series that we're working on right now, and I recorded an episode about a week and a half ago, is about recent award winners with Writers NL. So we are shifting from sort of one-off episodes to more series, and I'd encourage you, they are available on all major podcast platforms. The Inkpad, Writers NL Inkpad podcast. So we'd appreciate a subscribe or a follow to the podcast.
And on that note, at Let's Get Writing Here, I would appreciate subscribes and follows on my YouTube channel at Catherine Taylor TV, so you can see more of wonderful guests like Jay McGrath. And Jay, our time together is quickly coming to a close, but it's been delightful, and I want to thank you so much. It's a Saturday morning. And
I thank you. I really appreciate this, and it's cool to me now. I'm going to add this to my cool list to join all the people you've had on here. Now my name's included in that. That's cool for me.
Very cool. And folks, thanks so much for joining us. And again, we'll bring you more great content into 2024 and beyond. Have a wonderful day.